Picture a hunter-gatherer crouched by a fire 70,000 years ago, turning a piece of flint over in his hands, muttering to himself with every strike. Angle here, turn it, strike. No one else is listening. He's alone. And yet the words keep coming. That scene isn't so different from you standing in your kitchen tonight, narrating your grocery list out loud to an empty room. Talking to yourself, out loud or silently, isn't a modern quirk, and it isn't a sign that something's wrong with you. It's one of the oldest habits the human mind has, and science is only now catching up to why we never stopped doing it. The voice that helped us make tools. Here's a fact that surprises most people. Some of the strongest evidence for why we talk to ourselves doesn't come from a psychology lab, it comes from stone tools. Archaeologist Dietrich Stout has spent years scanning the brains of modern volunteers as they learned to knap flint into hand axes, the same technique our ancestors used up to 1.75 million years ago. The brain region that lights up the most isn't just the one that controls hand movement. It's Broca's area, the same patch of frontal cortex responsible for producing speech. This has led to what researchers call the technological pedagogy hypothesis. Language may have evolved, in part, because teaching someone to strike a stone at exactly the right angle is far easier with words than with silent gestures. Long before full grammar existed, our ancestors were likely narrating tool-making step by step, out loud, to apprentices and to themselves. If you've ever caught yourself talking through a task alone, okay, screw goes here, then this clip. You're doing something that may be at least as old as the hand axe itself, where the voice went underground. Every human child relives a piece of this history. Watch a 3-year-old play alone and you'll hear it. A running narration of block towers and toy animals, spoken entirely out loud, exactly like a toolmaker narrating each strike. Psychologist Lev Vygotsky called this private speech and argued it isn't idle chatter. It's a child using language to guide their own behavior, the same way an elder once guided a young toolmaker's hands with words. As children grow, that out-loud narration doesn't disappear. Around age 7, it goes underground, compressing into the silent inner speech adults used to plan and self-correct all day. The voice in your head, in other words, is the same tool your ancestors used at the campfire, it just learned to whisper. Not everyone hears the voice. Here's where it gets strange. Not everyone experiences an inner voice at all. A 2024 study out of the University of Copenhagen gave this a name, anendophasia, for people who report no verbal inner monologue whatsoever. Instead, they describe thinking in images, impressions, or a wordless just knowing, estimated to affect somewhere between 5 and 10% of people. Even among people who do have an inner voice, it isn't running constantly. Decades of research by psychologist Russell Hurlburt, who interrupts volunteers at random to ask what's in their mind, found that inner speech shows up in only about a quarter of our conscious moments. Whatever advantage self-talk gave our ancestors, evolution never made it mandatory, just common. Saying it out loud sharpens the hunt. Talking to yourself doesn't just organize your thoughts. It can sharpen your eyes, which would have mattered enormously to someone scanning tall grass for a hidden predator or a half-camouflaged route. In a well-known 2012 study, psychologists Gary Lupian and Daniel Swingley had people search for objects hidden among visual clutter. Participants who said the object's name out loud before searching, keys, 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 found it faster than people who searched in silence. The leading theory is that hearing a word activates the visual features tied to it, shape, size, color, priming the brain to detect exactly that pattern. A forager muttering the name of a fruit or a track under her breath may have been doing, unknowingly, the exact same thing modern lab participants do when hunting for their car keys. Coaching yourself like a tribal elder. There's one kind of self-talk researchers find especially powerful. Stepping out of I and into you, or your own name. Psychologist Ethan Cross and his collaborators found that when people faced a stressful task or a painful memory and coached themselves using their own name, Ethan, you've got this, instead of, I've got this, their brains showed calmer emotional activity within about a second, without any extra mental effort. It's easy to imagine why this might be ancient. A hunter facing down a wounded animal, or a lone traveler crossing unfamiliar territory, would have benefited from a voice in their head that sounded less like fear and more like an elder giving calm instructions from just outside the danger. Athletes, leaders, and, according to Cross, even Julius Caesar used the same trick, writing about himself in the third person in his own war journals. A brain that can mislabel its own voice. Here's a genuinely strange fact. Your brain has to work to confirm that your inner voice is, in fact, yours. Whenever your brain generates speech, even silent inner speech, it sends along an internal signal called a corollary discharge, tagging the sound as self-made so you don't mistake it for something outside you. This tagging system had to evolve right alongside spoken language itself, as soon as hominins had an inner voice worth mislabeling. Researchers believe that when this system misfires, the brain can end up treating self-generated inner speech as if it came from someone else, one of the leading explanations for the auditory hallucinations experienced in conditions like schizophrenia. Your everyday inner monologue and a clinical hallucination may run on the very same ancient circuitry, just with a mislabeled sender. The long chase and the marathon. Long before treadmills, our ancestors likely survived by persistence hunting, chasing prey for hours across open land until the animal collapsed from heat exhaustion. That kind of endurance almost certainly demanded some way to keep going long after the body wanted to stop, and sports psychologists have since documented exactly the tool that would have helped: self-talk. Researchers split it into instructional self-talk, elbow up, follow through, that sharpens technique, and motivational self-talk, just to that ridge, then rest, that pushes effort on grueling, prolonged tasks. Modern studies on runners and endurance athletes consistently show structured self-talk improves performance, the same trick a persistence hunter would have needed on hour 4 of a chase. When the voice turns against you. Not all self-talk helps, ancient or modern. Researchers analyzing personal writing and speech have found that heavier use of first-person singular words like I and me, especially in negative contexts, tracks with higher levels of depression. The voice that spirals into I always mess this up isn't just unpleasant. It's measurably tied to worse emotional outcomes. The encouraging part is that the fix uses the same ancient tool that causes the problem. Shifting the language, silently coaching yourself in the third person instead of ruminating in the first, the same trick that may have steadied a hunter's nerves, has been shown to reduce negative emotional reactivity almost immediately. It's the same principle cognitive behavioral therapy relies on today. Conclusion: the fire is gone. The voice remains. So why do we talk to ourselves? Because the voice narrating your day is likely a direct descendant of the one that once helped a hominin strike flint at exactly the right angle by the fire, or a forager name a fruit before spotting it in the underbrush. Somewhere along the way it went quiet, folding itself into a whisper only you can hear, but it never actually stopped working. So the next time you catch yourself muttering while searching for your keys or coaching yourself through a hard day, you're not being strange. You're doing something your ancestors were almost certainly doing around a fire, tens of thousands of years before anyone thought to write it down.